You can't fire me. You're not even supposed to be here." Those words came from Derek Morrison, a store manager talking to his own boss. But here's the twist that'll blow your mind. He was talking to Zara Okafor, the woman who built a $2 million fashion empire from nothing. And he was saying this while she stood in handcuffs in her own store. Derek had his phone out, recording everything. "I want this documented," he announced to the police officers. "When this turns out to be some kind of scam, I want proof that I followed proper protocol." Can you believe that? This man called the cops on his own CEO, watched her get handcuffed, and was still filming her like she was a common criminal. Zara stood there, hands behind her back, looking at this employee she had hired, trained, and trusted. This wasn't just about one bad night. This was about to destroy everything she'd built. See, when you're a successful black woman in America, one viral video of you in handcuffs can kill your reputation overnight. Your customers start questioning if they should shop with you. Your investors get nervous. Your employees lose respect. Derek wasn't just recording a suspected thief. He was potentially recording the end of Zara's empire. But here's where this story gets crazy. Freeze that moment right there. Before we go any further, let me tell you how a single night changed everything for both of them. Because what happened next will make you question everything you think you know about success, respect, and justice in America. But before we get into this wild story, smash that like button and comment down below where you're watching from. If you believe every entrepreneur deserves respect in their own business. Seriously, if you think what Derek did was wrong, show me by hitting that like button right now. And stick around because this story will shock you. I guarantee you've never heard anything like what I'm about to tell you. This is the story of how Zara Okafor went from handcuffs to headlines. How one employee's assumptions nearly destroyed $1 million business. And how sometimes the most powerful response to injustice is just two simple words. You're fired. Trust me, you won't see this coming. To understand why Derek's actions were so devastating, you need to know who Zara Okafor really is. 15 years ago, Zara stepped off a plane from Lagos, Nigeria, with $800 in her pocket and a dream that seemed impossible. She was 23, spoke English with a thick accent, and knew absolutely nothing about American business. Her family back home had sacrificed everything to send her to Atlanta, believing America was the land where dreams come true. Her first job? Folding clothes at a discount store for $7.25 an hour. The manager constantly mispronounced her name. Customers ignored her when she tried to help, and coworkers whispered behind her back about that African girl. But Zara watched everything. How customers shopped, what they wanted, what was missing from the market. She saved every penny for 2 years while working double shifts. No movies, no restaurants, no new clothes. Just pure determination. Finally, she had enough to rent a tiny 300-square-foot space in a strip mall. That's where Lux and Legacy was born, selling affordable African-inspired fashion to women who looked like her. The first month, she made $200 in sales. The second month, $350. But Zara never quit. Fast forward to today. 5 locations across the Southeast, $2.1 million in annual revenue, and a client list that includes celebrities, politicians, and Atlanta's social elite. The flagship store in Buckhead, the same one where Derek would later humiliate her, pulls in more money per square foot than most luxury brands. Zara speaks at business conferences. She's been featured in Forbes and Essence magazine. The mayor gave her a key to the city for supporting local entrepreneurs. She employs 43 people and has helped launch 12 other Black-owned businesses through her mentorship program. When she walks into corporate boardrooms, executives stand up to shake her hand. They call her Mrs. Okafor, with respect in their voices. They ask for her advice on reaching diverse markets. They compete to get meetings with her. But here's the thing about success that nobody talks about. It only works in certain spaces. In the boardroom, Zara is a respected CEO. On magazine covers, she's an inspiration. At business conferences, she's the keynote speaker everyone wants to hear from. But put her in casual clothes after hours in her own store? Suddenly, she becomes what Derek saw, a young black woman who doesn't belong there. A potential threat, a suspected thief. That's the cruel reality for successful black Americans. Your achievements, your wealth, your reputation, none of it matters if someone decides you don't look like you belong somewhere. Success has a price that Zara never expected to pay. She thought building an empire would earn her respect everywhere she went. She thought her business cards and bank statements were shields against discrimination. She was wrong. Drop a comment if you've ever felt like you didn't belong somewhere you had every right to be, because Zara's about to experience that in the worst way possible. What happens next will show you exactly how quickly respect can disappear when assumptions take over. September 15th started like any other Thursday for Zara. She spent the morning in back-to-back video calls with suppliers, reviewed sales reports from all 5 locations, and approved the marketing budget for the holiday season. By 8 p.m., she was exhausted and ready to call it a day. Then she noticed something odd in the inventory reports. The Buckhead store was showing discrepancies, expensive items marked as sold, but no corresponding payment records. It wasn't a huge amount, maybe $3,000 worth of merchandise, but Zara didn't build her empire by ignoring small problems. Small problems become big problems fast in retail. She could have waited until morning, called the store manager, and handled it through proper channels. But Zara was hands-on. That's how she'd built her success, by showing up when others wouldn't. So at 9:15 p.m., she grabbed her keys and headed out. She threw on dark jeans, a simple black sweater, and comfortable sneakers. No makeup, no jewelry, hair pulled back in a simple bun. After 13 hours of being CEO Zara, she just wanted to be comfortable while counting inventory. This choice of clothes would change everything. Now, let me tell you about Derek Morrison. He'd been managing the Buckhead store for 6 months, and on paper, he looked perfect for the job. 8 years of retail experience, including 3 years in loss prevention at a major department store chain. His previous manager called him detail-oriented and security-minded. Derek took pride in protecting store assets. He knew all the shoplifting tricks, the concealment methods, the distraction techniques, the way professional thieves operated. His old store had a theft rate 40% lower than company average, and he brought that same vigilance to Lux and Legacy. The problem? Derek had never actually met Zara face-to-face during regular business hours. She'd hired him through her assistant and the regional manager. Their few interactions had been brief phone calls about scheduling and inventory. When she did visit the store, she was always in professional attire, tailored suits, styled hair, full makeup. She looked like what Derek expected a successful CEO to look like. At 9:30 p.m., Zara used her key card to enter through the employee entrance. The motion sensors triggered the overhead lights as she walked through the stockroom toward the sales floor. She moved with purpose. This was her store, her routine, her comfort zone. She had no idea that Derek lived just 8 blocks away. She had no idea that the security company had his number listed as the primary after-hours contact. She had no idea that when the building's motion sensors detected activity, the system automatically sent alerts to both the security company and the store manager. Everything seemed normal as Zara pulled up the inventory system on the main computer. She started with the expensive handbag section where the discrepancies appeared. One by one, she checked physical items against digital records, making notes on her clipboard. 20 minutes. That's all the peace she got. Because at 9:52 p.m., Derek's phone buzzed with an alert from the security company. Motion detected at Lux and Legacy Buckhead location. Derek didn't think, oh, maybe it's the owner. He didn't consider, let me call first to check. His loss prevention training kicked in immediately. Unauthorized person in closed store equals theft in progress. He grabbed his keys and raced to the store, already dialing 911 as he drove. Hit subscribe right now because stories like this need to be heard. And trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Derek's about to make a mistake that destroys his career and nearly destroys Zara's reputation forever. Derek's car screeched into the parking lot at 9:58 p.m. Through the store windows, he could see a figure moving around inside, going through merchandise with what looked like a clipboard. His heart pounded. This was exactly the kind of professional theft operation he'd been trained to stop. He pulled out his phone and called 911 as he approached the front door. 911, what's your emergency? This is Derek Morrison, manager at Lux and Legacy on Peachtree Road. I'm looking at a break-in in progress. There's definitely someone inside who shouldn't be here. Are you certain it's not an employee or owner? Derek watched the figure through the window. Young black woman, casual clothes, moving confidently through the store. Positive. I know all our employees, and this isn't one of them. He ended the call and used his key to enter through the front door. Zara heard the door chime and looked up from her inventory checklist. She saw Derek walking toward her with his phone pressed to his ear, his face tense and focused. Derek? She called out. What are you doing here? Derek stopped mid-stride, his eyes narrowing. He held up one finger to silence her while he continued his phone conversation. Yes, I'm at the store now, he said into the phone, never taking his eyes off Zara. The suspect is still inside. Young black female, early 20s, casual clothing. She's going through our expensive merchandise. Zara's mouth dropped open. Derek, it's me. It's Zara Okafor, your boss. Derek shook his head dismissively. Ma'am, I don't know what game you're trying to play, but it won't work. I've seen this before. Thieves claiming to be employees or managers when they get caught. Are you serious right now? Zara's voice rose in disbelief. I hired you 6 months ago. I signed your employment paperwork. I approved your last vacation request. Right? Derek scoffed. And I suppose you just happened to memorize those details from some employee file you found? Zara reached for her purse. I'll show you my ID, my business cards, my key card that got me in here dash. Don't reach for anything. Derek barked, taking a step back. Keep your hands where I can see them. The command hit Zara like a physical blow. This man, her employee, someone she paid, someone she trusted with her business, was treating her like a dangerous criminal. In her own store, in the space she had built from nothing. Derek, look around you, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Look at the promotional posters on the walls. That's me in those photos modeling our clothes. How would a thief have professional photos of herself in your store? Derek glanced at the life-sized promotional images, then back at Zara. For a split second, uncertainty flickered across his face. But his training kicked in. Professional thieves research their targets, he said confidently. They study store layouts, employee schedules, even marketing materials. Nice try, but I'm not falling for it. You're not falling for what? The truth. The truth is you're trespassing in a closed business, going through merchandise, and now you're trying to con your way out of trouble. Zara felt something break inside her chest. This wasn't just about being accused of theft. This was about watching someone she had given a chance to, someone she had trusted, look at her and see only what his biases told him to see. I own this store, Derek. I built this company. Every single item you think I'm stealing, I bought it from the suppliers. Every display you think I'm disturbing, I designed it myself. Ma'am, you can drop the act. The police are already on their way. That's when it hit her. Derek had called the police on her. Her own employee had called the cops and reported her as a criminal. The humiliation crashed over her like a wave. Derek pulled out his phone again, this time to text someone. I'm documenting everything for the report, he announced. Time of arrival, suspect description, attempted deception tactics. He was treating this like a textbook case study, like she was just another criminal he'd caught in the act. Like 15 years of building her empire meant nothing because she didn't look like what he expected a successful business owner to look like. If this is making your blood boil, share this video, because every Black entrepreneur needs to see they're not alone in this fight. What Derek does next will shock you even more. Within 4 minutes, the store's front entrance exploded with activity. 2 building security guards rushed in first, followed immediately by Officers Martinez and Chun from the Atlanta Police Department. The flashing red and blue lights outside cast an otherworldly glow through the store windows. Derek straightened his shoulders and walked confidently toward the officers, his phone still in his hand, documenting everything. "Officers, thank you for responding so quickly," he said with authority. "I'm Derek Morrison, store manager. I caught this woman going through our merchandise after hours. She's claiming to be the owner, but I know that's impossible." Officer Martinez, a 15-year veteran, looked at Zara and then back at Derek. "What makes you so certain she doesn't belong here?" "Simple," Derek replied. "I've been managing this location for 6 months. I know the owner, the regional managers, all the employees. This woman doesn't work here, and she definitely doesn't own this place." Zara stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly as she reached into her purse. "Officers, I'm Zara Okafor. Here's my driver's license, my business cards, and the key card that gave me access to this building." She handed over the documents with as much dignity as she could manage. Officer Martinez examined each item carefully while Derek watched with growing confidence. "Anyone can fake business cards," Derek interjected. "And key cards can be stolen or cloned. I've seen these scams before at my previous job." Officer Chin walked around the store, taking in the details. That's when he noticed the promotional displays Derek had somehow missed. Large, professional photographs featuring Zara modeling various outfits from the store's collection. "Mr. Morrison," Officer Chin called out, pointing to a life-sized poster near the checkout counter. "Isn't that the same woman standing right here?" Derek barely glanced at the image. "Those are just marketing photos. Lots of stores use models who have nothing to do with the actual business. It's probably a stock photo she found online to support her story." The absurdity of his explanation hung in the air. Officer Martinez looked from the promotional image to Zara, noting the identical facial features, the same distinctive smile, even a small scar above her left eyebrow that appeared in both the photo and in person. "Sir, these appear to be professionally shot photos specifically for this store," Officer Martinez said slowly. "The clothing matches your current inventory, and the backdrop shows this exact location." But Derek wasn't backing down. His retail loss prevention training had taught him that sophisticated thieves would go to great lengths to avoid prosecution. In his mind, this was exactly the kind of elaborate con he'd been hired to prevent. "Officers, with all due respect, I've been in retail security for 8 years. Professional theft rings do extensive research. They study store layouts, employee schedules, even marketing materials. This woman probably spent weeks preparing for this break-in." Zara felt her knees weaken. Not only was her own employee accusing her of theft, but he was doing it with such conviction that he was making the officers question obvious evidence. She watched Officer Martinez run her driver's license through his system while Derek continued building his case. "Look at her clothing," Derek pressed on. "Casual, dark colors, comfortable shoes, classic burglar attire. And notice how she knew exactly where to find the expensive merchandise. That's not coincidence. I knew where to find it because I ordered it myself," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I personally selected every item in this store." "Of course you did," Derek replied with a patronizing smile. "That's exactly what a professional thief would say." Officer Martinez's radio crackled with confirmation. Zara Okafor's identification was valid. Her address matched a prestigious neighborhood in Atlanta, and there were no outstanding warrants or criminal history. But Derek wasn't finished. "Officers, I need you to understand something. This store generates over $2 million annually. We're a prime target for organized retail crime. Just last month, I prevented 3 separate theft attempts using these exact same tactics. The security guards looked uncomfortable. One of them whispered to Officer Chun, "The key card she used is definitely legitimate. Our system shows it was issued to the business owner." Derek overheard and shook his head. "Key cards can be duplicated. I've seen it happen." This was the moment that would define everything. Zara realized that no amount of evidence would convince Derek he was wrong. He had decided she was a criminal the moment he saw her, and he was going to defend that decision no matter what proof she provided. Standing there in her own store, surrounded by photos of herself, holding her legitimate identification while her employee called her a liar. This was rock bottom. But Derek wasn't done destroying her dignity yet. Just when Zara thought the humiliation couldn't get worse, Derek reached into his pocket and pulled out his smartphone. He held it up, pointing the camera directly at her face. "What are you doing?" Officer Martinez asked. "I want this documented," Derek announced loudly, making sure his voice would be captured clearly on the recording. "When this turns out to be some kind of elaborate scam, I want video proof that I followed proper loss prevention protocol." The red recording light blinked steadily as Derek continued filming. "For the record, this is Derek Morrison, store manager at Lux and Legacy Buckhead. The date is September 15th, approximately 10:15 p.m. I'm documenting the apprehension of a suspected thief who broke into our store and is now attempting to impersonate the business owner." Zara stared at the phone camera, watching her humiliation being recorded for posterity. This wasn't just about being wrongly accused anymore. Derek was creating permanent evidence of the most degrading moment of her professional life. "She's provided fake identification," Derek continued into the camera, "fake business cards, and is claiming ownership of promotional materials that are clearly stock photography." That was it. That was the moment Zara's professional composure finally shattered. 15 years of building her empire. 15 years of proving herself in boardrooms full of men who looked just like Derek. 15 years of being told she was articulate and professional and one of the good ones. And now her own employee was filming her like she was a common criminal while police officers stood by and watched. The rage that had been building in her chest finally exploded. "Derek," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You're fired." Derek's phone wavered slightly, but he kept recording. "Excuse me. You heard me. You're fired. Terminated. No longer employed by my company." Derek lowered his phone and laughed. Actually laughed. "You can't fire me. You're not even supposed to be here. Watch me." Officer Martinez had been quietly speaking into his radio, running additional checks on Zara's information. His voice cut through the tension. "Mr. Morrison, I need you to stop recording immediately." "Why?" "This is evidence of Dash." "Mr. Morrison," Officer Martinez said more firmly, "I've just confirmed with building management, the business license department, and our database. Ms. Zara Okafor is indeed the registered owner of Lux and Legacy Corporation. She has every legal right to be in this establishment." The words hit Derek like a physical blow. His confident expression faltered for the first time since he'd arrived. Officer Chin stepped forward with additional confirmation. "The promotional photographs are legitimate marketing materials featuring the actual business owner. The key card access, the identification documents, and the business registration all check out." Derek's face went white. He looked from the officers to Zara to the promotional photos on the walls, and for the first time, really saw them. The same eyes, the same smile, the same small scar above the left eyebrow. But she was, he stammered. "She was doing inventory in her own store," Officer Martinez said coldly. "Which is completely legal since she owns it." The power shift happened in real time. Suddenly Derek wasn't the hero manager who'd caught a sophisticated thief. He was the employee who'd just humiliated his own boss, wasted police resources, and created a potential lawsuit for his company. Ms. Okafor, Officer Chen said respectfully, "We apologize for this misunderstanding. You're free to continue with your work." Derek stood frozen, his phone still in his hand, the reality of his massive mistake finally sinking in. "So just to be clear," Zara said, looking directly at Derek, "you called the police on your own boss, refused to believe legitimate identification, and filmed me being humiliated in my own store." Derek opened his mouth, but no words came out. Comment justice if you felt that satisfaction when she fired him, because this is just the beginning of Derek's very bad night. After the police left and the security guards returned to their posts, Zara found herself alone with Derek in the store that had become a crime scene of bias rather than burglary. Derek was desperately trying to salvage what remained of his career. "Ms. Okafor, please, this is all a huge misunderstanding," he pleaded. "I was just trying to protect your business. Isn't that what you'd want from a manager?" Zara walked to her desk and pulled out a yellow legal pad. She was going to document every single detail of this night while it was fresh in her memory. "Derek, let me explain to you what really happened here," she said, her voice steady but cold. "You saw a young black woman in casual clothes in an upscale store after hours. And instead of thinking business owner doing inventory, your brain immediately jumped to thief stealing merchandise. That's not fair. I was following security protocol dash." "No, you weren't." Zara looked up from her notes. "Security protocol requires reasonable suspicion based on observed behavior. What criminal behavior did you observe? Me checking items against our computer system with a clipboard? Me using a legitimate key card to enter the building? Me standing in my own store?" Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Well, when you put it like that, dash. Here's what actually happened," Zara continued. "You saw what your unconscious bias told you to see. A young black woman couldn't possibly own a successful business. She couldn't possibly belong in this space. She had to be up to something illegal." "I really didn't think about race," Derek protested. "I would have done the same thing if it was anyone dash. Stop lying to yourself and to me." Zara's pen scratched across the legal pad as she documented his response. "If you had walked in here and seen a middle-aged white man in casual clothes, would you have called 911? Would you have refused to look at his ID? Would you have filmed him and called him a liar?" Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. They both knew the answer. "The worst part isn't even that you didn't recognize me," Zara said. "People have off days. Lighting can be tricky. I understand that. The worst part is what happened after I told you who I was. You didn't just fail to recognize your boss. You refused to believe me when I told you the truth." She stood up and walked to the promotional poster Derek had dismissed as fake. "You looked at professional photographs of me modeling our clothes and called them stock photos. You looked at my business cards and called them fake. You looked at my legitimate ID and called it fraudulent. Why? Because you had already decided what you were seeing, and no amount of evidence was going to change your mind." Derek was quiet for a long moment. Then he said the words that sealed his fate. "But you have to admit, the whole situation looked suspicious." "Suspicious to whom, Derek?" 3 hours later, Zara was on a conference call with her attorney, Marcus Webb, even though it was well past midnight. "Zara, I'm sorry this happened to you," Marcus said. "But from a legal standpoint, you're on solid ground for immediate termination. Georgia is an at-will employment state, and calling the police on your own boss without reasonable cause constitutes serious misconduct. What about his claim that he was following loss prevention protocol? That won't hold up. Loss prevention requires reasonable suspicion of actual criminal activity. Being in a store after hours with legitimate access isn't criminal behavior. His actions were discriminatory, and that's grounds for immediate termination." The next morning, Zara returned to the store with Marcus and her HR consultant, to conduct Derek's exit interview. Even given the chance to explain himself, Derek stuck to his story. "I was protecting the business," he insisted. Any good manager would have done the same thing. Right there, in that final statement, Derek proved he still didn't understand what he had done wrong. 3 weeks after Derek's termination, Zara called an emergency meeting with managers from all 5 Lux and Legacy locations. She wasn't going to let this incident destroy her. She was going to use it to build something better. "What happened to me in our Buckhead store can never happen again," she announced to the room full of managers. "Not to me, not to our customers, and definitely not because of our own employees." Within 30 days, Zara had completely overhauled her company's policies. Every employee, from part-time sales associates to senior managers, now had to complete mandatory unconscious bias training. Not once, but annually. The training included real scenarios, role-playing exercises, and specific guidelines about assumptions and customer interactions. She updated every loss prevention protocol in the company handbook. The new rules were clear. Suspected theft required observed criminal behavior, not assumptions based on appearance. Any employee who called police without following proper procedure would face immediate termination. But Zara's biggest change was her new hire for the Buckhead location. Meet Amina Hassan, a retail veteran with 15 years of experience and specialized training in diversity and inclusion. Amina had worked for major department store chains and knew exactly how unconscious bias played out in retail environments. "Every customer who walks through our doors should feel welcome," Amina told her new team during her first staff meeting. "Every employee should feel empowered to create that experience, regardless of what assumptions they might make about someone's appearance or background." Under Amina's leadership, the Buckhead store became a model for inclusive customer service. Sales increased 23% in the first quarter, and customer satisfaction scores hit all-time highs. But Zara wasn't content with just fixing her own business. She started speaking at business conferences, sharing her story, and advocating for better practices across the retail industry. Her keynote at the National Retail Federation Conference went viral, with over 2 million views on social media. "Success doesn't protect you from bias," she told audiences, "but it gives you the platform to fight it." Other Black entrepreneurs began reaching out, sharing their own stories of discrimination in their own businesses. Restaurant owners who'd been questioned by police in their own kitchens. Tech founders who'd been asked to prove they belonged in their own offices. The stories were disturbingly similar. This sparked Zara to create the Belong Here mentorship program. She partnered with 12 other successful Black business owners to provide guidance, support, and resources to emerging entrepreneurs. The program included bias training, legal consultation, and crisis management support. Within 6 months, the program had helped launch 23 new Black-owned businesses and provided bias training to over 200 companies across the Southeast. The incident with Derek became a catalyst for industry-wide conversations about representation and assumptions in professional spaces. Major retail chains began updating their policies. Consulting firms started offering specialized bias training, and business schools added courses on inclusive leadership. Zara turned her worst professional moment into her most powerful tool for change. The woman who'd been handcuffed in her own store became the voice leading conversations about respect, assumptions, and belonging in American business. Derek's mistake didn't just cost him a job, it accidentally created a movement. 2 years later, Lux and Legacy had grown from 5 locations to 8, with annual revenue jumping to $3.2 million. The incident that could have destroyed Zara's business had actually strengthened it. Customers weren't just buying clothes anymore. They were supporting a company that stood for something bigger. Young Black professionals drove hours to shop at Lux and Legacy because they knew they'd be treated with respect. The story of Zara's humiliation and triumph had turned her customers into advocates. But the real impact went far beyond sales numbers. The Belong Here mentorship program had expanded to 12 cities, supporting over 150 Black entrepreneurs. The bias training program Zara developed was now being used by Fortune 500 companies across the country. She'd been invited to testify before Congress about discrimination in retail environments. Major retail chains started updating their policies after Zara's conference speeches went viral. Companies like Target, Nordstrom, and Macy's implemented new training programs specifically addressing racial profiling. The National Retail Federation created new guidelines for loss prevention that directly referenced Zara's experience. Local business schools began using her case study to teach about unconscious bias in management. 3 universities offered her honorary doctorates. Harvard Business School invited her to co-teach a course on inclusive leadership. Every month, Zara received messages from other Black business owners sharing their own stories. Restaurant owners, tech entrepreneurs, medical practice owners, all describing similar moments when their success hadn't protected them from assumptions. Success doesn't eliminate bias, Zara would tell them, but it gives you the power to fight it. That phone call from Derek's lawyer asking for a reference? Zara declined. That interview request from Derek claiming he'd learned from his mistakes? Also declined. Some actions have permanent consequences. But here's what Zara learned. You can choose what your pain becomes. She chose to turn her worst professional moment into her most powerful tool for change. She chose to use her platform to fight for others who didn't have her resources or visibility. The woman who was handcuffed in her own store became the voice changing how America talks about belonging, respect, and assumptions in business. If this story moved you, here's what I need you to do right now. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell because stories like Zara's deserve to be heard. Drop a comment telling me what this taught you, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we're building a community that refuses to stay silent about injustice. Now I want you to ask yourself a hard question. What assumptions do you make when you see someone who doesn't look like they belong in a certain space? When you see a young Black woman in casual clothes in an upscale store, what's your first thought? When you see someone who doesn't match your mental model of success, do you question their right to be there? Zara's story isn't just about one racist employee. It's about the biases we all carry and the assumptions that shape how we treat each other every single day. This is what Rise Stories is all about: resilience, injustice, stories, and excellence. We're here to share the experiences that mainstream media won't tell you about. The moments when success isn't enough. The times when dignity gets stolen. And most importantly, the people who refuse to stay silent. Next week, I'm bringing you the story of Marcus Williams, a Black heart surgeon who was arrested in his own hospital parking lot because security didn't believe he was a doctor. You won't believe what happened when the hospital tried to cover it up. But here's the thing. If you don't subscribe right now, you might miss these crucial stories. Every subscription sends a message that Black voices matter. Every like fights against the algorithm that tries to silence us. Don't just watch, join the movement.